people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is our last look at Alicia Baumgardner versus Jennifer Miranda, what will be the MVP debut for both fighters since MVP signed the both of them. But only one can win. They're both registered as standing in at 5'6". But having seen them side by side, Jennifer does look a little bit taller and a little bit longer than Alicia, more wiry. Whereas Alicia has noticeably more musculature and more meat on those bones, sporting a professional record of 15 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 7 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional bouts, what still is the super featherweight division's undisputed champion. And a huge step up for a 12-0 Jennifer Miranda, who may have a similar number of fights to Alicia Baumgardner, but not similar experiences. In Alicia Baumgardner's 15 professional bouts, she's faced tougher tests and much tougher opponents than Jennifer Miranda has. Perhaps that's why Jennifer is still unbeaten. She's a featherweight. She normally campaigns at 126. For this fight, she's moving up to 130. Last in action in October of last year, opposite the ring, Teresa Almengor, who Jennifer decisioned over 10 rounds. She actually fought 3 times last year. She was busy, busier than Alicia, who only saw action once in what was the Delphine Pursoon fight. It's the only fight that Alicia had last year, and what heralded her departure from Matchroom Boxing. They didn't promote that show. The Global Combat Collective did. Now she's with MVP, now she's fighting Jennifer Miranda. This is not a fight I had to think too long on, too hard about. I think that physically, Alicia has her beat in every department. That's not even counting the X's and O's and fundamentals of boxing. Just physically, I think Alicia is going to be way too much for her. Too fast, too strong, too mean-spirited. On the front foot, the back foot, moving lateral, Alicia does everything better than Jennifer Miranda, and I would be surprised if Alicia doesn't stop Jennifer. Because I think she's going to. That's how I have it. I have Alicia Baumgardner by way of knockout. Alicia Baumgardner knows how to present herself and knows how to make the most of an opportunity when one is afforded to her, which was evident in November of 2021 when she got the chance to box on a Matchroom show against Terry Harper, who she stopped in devastating fashion, left an impression on everybody that saw her, to then go on and fight on an even bigger stage a year later against her arch nemesis, her adversary, Michaela Mayer, who she beat by way of a split decision. Those were comparatively better opponents and somewhat bigger fights than this one is, but not on a bigger stage. Netflix is a massive platform with over 300 million subscribers worldwide. For anybody who hasn't already seen Alicia in action, isn't already familiar with her, this is her opportunity to acquaint herself with that audience. And like I said, Alicia has a way of making the most of an opportunity when one is afforded to her. So I expect that she's going to walk down Jennifer Miranda. She's going to overpower her. I expect she's going to stop her. The future. You know that Alicia wants the winner of Taylor versus Serrano 3, but I don't actually think she's going to get the winner of that fight. I don't think she's going to get the loser. What I do think is that she might move up in weight after this fight because there are no big names at 130 right now, and nothing to keep her there aside from being undisputed. But what's the point if there aren't big fights? She might move up to 135 5. Where Carolyn Dubois holds a title, so does Beatrice Ferreira, so does her old buddy Terry Harper, and so does newly crowned WBA champion and MVP signee Stephanie Hahn. Holly Holm also happens to be campaigning there. She recently made her big comeback, her MVP debut. For Alicia Baumgardner, any one of those fights at 135 is bigger and better than anything left at 130, so I think after the Jennifer Miranda fight, she's gonna move up. She has to. You're fighting on bigger, much bigger stages than before. You need bigger fights, bigger names, better opponents. First, she's got to take care of business this Friday. I think she is gonna Jennifer her Miranda. She's gonna kick her ass. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, as it pertains to another one of this weekend's cards, the ring will not be smaller than usual for Ring 3 at the Louis Armstrong Stadium, New York. The box is scheduled to compete Saturday night at the Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens. Won't have less room to operate after all. The ring has learned that a standard ring, 24 feet outside the ropes by 20 feet inside, will be used for Ring 3, a stacked DAZN pay-per-view card that will be distributed from one of the venues used each summer for the US Open tennis tournament. Turkey LL Sheikh sought a smaller ring than typically used to initiate more action. Turkey LL Sheikh, the head of Riyadh season, repeatedly expressed his disdain for Tom and Jerry fights after consumers complained about a lack of overall action in Rolly Romero's points upset of Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney's wide decision win over Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez's dominant unanimous decision win over Arnold Barboza. LL Sheikh likened fights to the legendary cartoon which often featured a cat, Tom, trying to catch a mouse, Jerry. Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, the promoter of record for Ring 3, initially ordered a smaller ring than 24 by 20 feet for Saturday night once it became clear that multiple boxers scheduled to fight didn't want to compete in a 20 by 18 ring. All parties involved agreed to a 24 by 20. Having more room to box obviously favors fighters who rely on movement and boxing skill, such as Shakur Stevenson, who will defend his WBC lightweight title against his mandatory challenger, William Zepeda. Interestingly, the ring has confirmed Stevenson was not one of the boxers who was opposed to fighting in a 20 by 18 ring. Then who was? Well, it's gotta be the guys that plan on moving around. So I figure that's Alberto Puello more than Subriel Matias, that's David Morrell more than Imam Katayev. Between Edgar Berlanga and Hamza Shiraz, I'm not sure, because Edgar fancies himself more of a boxer now and more of a mover, but at the same time, Hamza Shiraz is new to the weight. He's the taller, longer fighter of the two, so you figure that he might be the one that wants a bit more room to move around, a bit more room to work. But oddly enough, it was not Shakur Stevenson, who many people like to call a track star, many people like to call a runner, that protested a smaller ring. So what is Shakur Stevenson planning? He's going to be in there with one of the more aggressive pressure fighters anywhere at or around these weights, what is basically a punching machine in William Zepeda. And he doesn't plan on moving around? He doesn't plan on using the ring? So then how does Shakur Stevenson deal with his aggression? How does he deal with his volume? All those punches. Stepping around the side. I'll take you back to what was the Robson-Conceição fight that he had some time ago. Shakur wasn't running from that guy. He was stepping to the side of him and coming over the top of his jab. Movement in a boxing match is not limited to playing keep away with your opponent. Sometimes it can be as simple and as subtle as stepping around them, attacking from a different angle where it's harder for them to defend. So if you're staying on the outside of your opponent's lead, you're still moving, and that's still movement.
The no fucks given Shakur Stevenson right now is as entertaining as it gets. You're unbelievable these days, man. You're on fire.
Yeah, I've been very focused for this fight. Honestly, I'm just here to make a statement. Like it's show and tell for me. So I'm gonna show my talents, and the world gonna get to see a different version of me.
Man, I feel like I can actually see the chip on your shoulder.
So if he doesn't plan on running, and the plan is to cut angles on William Zepeda to try to stay just on the outside of his lead. How would that look like between two southpaws?
Yeah.
Well, Shakur does look a bit taller than William and longer. We know that William's sweet spot is mid-range to inside, so his best punches are his bent arm punches, his hooks, his uppercuts, his body shots. That's where he does his best work, within close quarters, whereas Shakur...
His best punches are his straight punches, when he can get full extension on the arm. That's whether he's hanging back or coming forward. That's his best stuff.
His reputation as a runner, as it were, precedes him, because he didn't run from Artem Kharatunian, and he didn't run from Josh Padley. If you were paying attention, he actually came forward on those guys, actually threw some bent arm punches of his own, some body punches of his own. He's trying to get away from that runner reputation.
So then what's the plan for William?
Bob, weave, catch and counter, roll and counter.
Pivot.
Two-step around William, attack from a different angle where it's harder for William to defend. I think he plans on interrupting William's flow.
Disrupt it. Don't let him build momentum. Catch him coming in.
Because if he doesn't plan on using the ring, and he doesn't plan on running, if he plans on making a statement would be beating William from the inside out. Sort of beating him at his own game.
At least at his own range.
Among pure boxers in the sport right now, I do think Shakur is a bit more fluid mid-range to inside than, say, a Devin Haney, than, say, a William Skull. He can handle himself better at that proximity than those pure boxers can. I've always said I think he's better with that style than they are, and more adaptable.
What about his hands?
Yeah, he does have hand issues. He does have brittle hands, and it's hard to know what to make of that or what effect that could have on the fight. But I like his chances. Even though stylistically pressure guys usually wear out and wear down pure boxers, one thing that's counting against William Zepeda are the two Tevin Farmer fights, and that he didn't stop him. He didn't knock him out as many times as he landed on Tevin.
And Tevin doesn't have the height or the length of a Shakur Stevenson. Not as fresh, not as young.
Not as nimble, not as agile. Shakur is comparatively trickier and harder to get to. Shakur Stevenson is altering his methodology based on what people have been saying about him the last 2 years. That is evidence enough that bullying works.
Why else would you be changing if not for the stuff that people have been saying about you? You know you don't like it.
They often categorize these outside fighters and movers as being slicksters when there's nothing slick about staying so far on the outside of your opponent you're not actually dodging anything. No, real slickness is being within the line of fire.
And not getting hit.
Whereas these outboxers are so far on the outside of their opponents so often, they're not actually in the rain. They're indoors.
There's a parallel for you.
I do think Shakur is more than an outside fighter, an outboxer. He can be more.
I think he will be this weekend. I think I'm gonna go with Shakur to win.
Tenuously, I'm gonna go with Shakur Stevenson to win, and I'm gonna go with Shakur Stevenson to maybe, just maybe, get a stoppage.
What?
I'm expecting a big performance. Let's see if he delivers. Elsewhere in the lightweight division, immature standout Andy Cruz is now officially the IBF's new #1 lightweight contender, making him Raymond Muratalla's problem. Raymond Muratalla, the newly crowned IBF champion. Andy Cruz's victory over Hironori Mishiro in an elimination bout last month has landed him in the #1 slot at lightweight in the IBF's latest rankings update, which was released on July 7th. Cruz, who won Olympic gold in 2021, moved to 6-0, 3 KOs as a pro, with his 5th round stoppage of Mishiro on the undercard of Richardson Richens versus George Cambodius at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Cruz is also rated #1 by the World Boxing Council, behind the winner of Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda this weekend. #2 by the WBA. That title belongs to Gervonta Davis.
Yeah, let's not waste any time on him, please.
So why should Andy Cruz favor the IBF route over any other route? It's because the IBF, no matter who the champion is, they're not going to jerk you off under the table and make you a sandwich afterwards.
They don't care if you're Tyson Fury, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez, Joe Cordina, or Josh Taylor. They'll strip you for non-compliance. For a Cuban fighter like Andy Cruz, that's the advantage that he needs. The advantage, the ability to put Raymond Muratalla on the spot.
Since, according to Andy Cruz, Raymond is sandbagging it. He took to his social media and tagged Raymond, urging him to sign the contract.
Sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract.
Stating, the day I become world champion, I will defend my title against whoever it is because that's what championships are for, to defend them, no matter who it is. These so-called champions, looking for excuses to avoid facing anyone, prefer to seek alternatives. Boxing is for fighters, not for names. Contracts that are sent to me, I will sign because I came to this country to fight anyone. Sincerely, El Diamante.
So is it possible that Team Muratalla is sandbagging it and they've got cold feet? They don't want to have to fight Andy.
So soon after having become a world champion himself, he hasn't yet had the chance to parlay that title into a big payday. Is that the reason he's dragging his feet? Andy Cruz, only 6 fights in, and being a Cuban fighter, he ain't worth but so much money. He still is a high-risk, low-reward opponent.
But here are a few caveats if you're Raymond Muratalla. Top Rank's broadcast situation is still nebulous, and there's supposed to be a blackout in August. We don't know for sure when they will return after that or where.
What that also means for Raymond is, left up to Top Rank, who knows when you'll fight again? Whereas there's a contract on the table for you now to fight, are you in a position to turn it down?
That's a caveat.
What else is a caveat is you're IBF champion, not WBC champion, not WBA champion. Those organizations that like to dick their mandatories around their contenders, the IBF doesn't do that.
That's a caveat.
You don't take care of this guy now, you're still gonna have to do it later or forfeit the red belt. Forfeit the IBF title. Are you prepared to do that so soon after having won it? Just to avoid facing a guy with 6 fights.
That's a caveat.
Better now than later, Raymond. The more time you give Andy Cruz to amass professional experience, the more difficult he may become to beat later on. But while he's still green to the gills and only has 6 fights, you might as well take care of this now.
Raymond.
Right now, you are more experienced than this guy, and you're more experienced by a lot. Experience is the difference between premature ejaculation and sending her to the halls of Valhalla. Experience. That's what you've got over Andy right now. You don't want to use that to your advantage.
You better.
Because if you don't, the IBF is going to eventually take your title from you. Now, how's that going to look? What are people going to say?
Who sent the contract?
I don't know. Maybe it was Matchroom. Maybe it was Turkey LL Sheik. Maybe he wants to add this fight to that November show he's doing. Either way, Raymond doesn't have all the time in the world to be indecisive.
Make a decision.